Very disturbing to hear these things and to kind of see someone on the seats that appear to.
Tiffany Henyard, the self-declared super mayor of Dunn, Illinois, is facing an unprecedented crisis as the November election draws near. Once considered a political powerhouse, Henyard's campaign has descended into chaos, with her approval rating plummeting to a shocking single-digit percentage. Amid a growing FBI investigation, a potentially catastrophic eviction lawsuit, and mounting outrage from the very residents who once supported her, her leadership is now seen as weak, desperate, and increasingly unsustainable. One of the most infamous events during Henyard's tenure was the annual Thanksgiving turkey giveaway, a charitable initiative that quickly became emblematic of her failing leadership. Initially intended as a gesture of goodwill, the event backfired, coming across as nothing more than a weak political ploy to distract from the dire financial situation facing Dunn. Public sentiment, already on shaky ground, plummeted even further after this debacle, as more residents began to see through the facade of her leadership. The turkey giveaway became a symbol of her desperation, rather than her compassion, and it was clear that Henyard was more focused on maintaining her public image than addressing the town's real issues. Behind the scenes, Henyard's leadership has been marked by a series of backdoor deals, dishonest tactics, and increasingly bizarre political stunts. Christopher Gonzalez, one of her most vocal critics, has made public revelations about Henyard's growing desperation and her willingness to bend or break the law to retain power. These revelations paint a picture of a mayor whose every action seems more focused on maintaining her grip on the political spotlight than serving the people she was elected to represent. Instead of addressing the real issues facing the community, Henyard has resorted to erratic, attention-grabbing tactics designed to keep her name in the headlines, further alienating voters and supporters alike. Adding fuel to the fire is the ongoing FBI investigation into Henyard's administration, raising serious questions about her involvement in unethical and potentially illegal activities. With each passing day, the investigation further erodes what little trust she had left with the residents of Dunn. Henyard's approval ratings have tanked, and with the election looming, the stakes could not be higher. Once loyal supporters have turned against her, voicing frustration with the spectacle her leadership has become. The political base that Henyard spent years cultivating has all but evaporated, replaced by a rising tide of resentment and calls for her removal from office. Henyard's political strategy has now shifted from one of success to one of survival. Desperate to cling to any semblance of power, she has resorted to increasingly reckless and bizarre behavior. From forging questionable alliances with local figures to openly defying the very laws she once promised to uphold, Henyard's leadership has grown more erratic and unpredictable with each passing day. As the election approaches, her campaign has become a frantic scramble to salvage her reputation and regain control of the narrative. However, the cracks in her leadership are now impossible to ignore, and her every move seems to alienate her further from the very people she once promised to serve. The upcoming election is shaping up to be not just a test of Henyard's political future, but also a critical turning point for the future of Dunn. Will Henyard be able to rally her dwindling base and turn the tide of public opinion, or will the growing wave of outrage and disillusionment lead to one of the most spectacular political upsets in recent memory? The stakes have never been higher, and the outcome remains uncertain. As the election date draws nearer, it is clear that Henyard's campaign is in freefall. With mounting legal and ethical challenges, and her approval ratings in free fall, it seems more likely by the day that her political career will come to a dramatic end. For Henyard, the next few months will be critical. Can she regain the trust of her former supporters and navigate the growing storm of controversy surrounding her? Or will this election mark the end of a political career already marred by scandal and turmoil? The race for mayor of Dunn is shaping up to be one of the most dramatic and turbulent contests in recent history. The drama, the intrigue, and the spectacle surrounding this election will undoubtedly capture the public's attention, leaving a lasting impact on the political landscape of Dunn, Illinois. The only question now is whether Tiffany Henyard can weather the storm, or if the November election will be the beginning of the end of her political career.
Those entities, as we know, can take anywhere from 2 months to...
Tiffany Henyard's tenure as mayor of Dalton, Illinois, has deteriorated into a classic example of mismanagement, corruption, and neglect. Amid one of the worst winter storms the town has seen, Henyard failed to provide any substantial leadership or support to her community. Residents were left stranded on icy roads, facing an urgent crisis with no visible action from their mayor. Henyard's primary focus appeared to be her social media presence, rather than the safety of the citizens she was meant to serve. This alarming neglect has led to widespread anger and a sense of betrayal from the community, who feel as though their needs are being ignored in favor of Hanner's political ambitions. The financial situation in Dalton has only worsened under Hanner's leadership. There are numerous allegations of financial mismanagement, with critics claiming she has drained town funds for personal and political gain instead of addressing the community's needs. This mismanagement has not only harmed the town, but also affected local businesses. Many entrepreneurs, including Lawrence Gardner, the owner of a trucking company, have accused Hanner of obstructing their efforts to expand or operate, using her position to bully and intimidate them for political advantage. Gardner even compared her tactics to those of the infamous drug lord Nino Brown from New Jack City, claiming she used criminal intimidation to control the business landscape. This shocking comparison highlights how many in the community view her leadership as a hostile, authoritarian regime designed to maintain power at all costs. As Hanner's approval ratings plummeted, public dissatisfaction reached a boiling point. During a public meeting, one resident exclaimed, "This is embarrassing," voicing the feelings of many who felt deceived by her inaction. Hanner's refusal to step down despite mounting public outrage only fueled the perception that she cared more about holding on to power than serving her constituents. Meanwhile, Dalton's already fragile financial state worsened, further damaging the town's ability to provide even basic services. Hanner's continued grip on power has alienated many who once supported her, and it's become increasingly clear that her leadership is pushing the town to the brink of collapse. Hanner's inability to maintain control over her administration was further exposed when two of her town trustees, Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle, failed to attend an important meeting, preventing the town from making critical decisions. This dysfunction has underscored the challenges Dalton faces under her leader. In addition to local grievances, Hanner is now facing an FBI investigation into her re-election campaign, which could have major implications for her political future. Federal authorities have seized financial records from both Dalton and neighboring Thornton Township, examining potential misconduct related to dubious contracts and possible misappropriation of funds. Although Hanner continues to deny any wrongdoing, the investigation casts a long shadow over her administration, and her re-election campaign appears to be more about self-preservation than genuinely serving the town. Hanner's financial troubles are also spilling into her personal life, with one of her key allies, Kyle Wood, facing an eviction lawsuit for unpaid rent. This personal issue adds to the growing perception that Hanner's financial mismanagement extends beyond the public sphere and into her personal relationships, further tarnishing her reputation. Despite mounting pressure, Hanner has refused to take responsibility for her actions. Instead, she has adopted a self-serving approach to governance, attempting to suppress opposition and intimidate critics. Further fueling the sense of corruption within her administration is the alleged misuse of the police department. According to former police chief Robert Collins, Hanner used the department to target political enemies, a claim that has raised serious concerns about the politicization of the police force under her control. In response to growing threats to her power, Hanner hired a large security detail, which many residents view as a wasteful expenditure, especially as Dalton's infrastructure crumbles and basic services deteriorate. This excessive spending on security only reinforces the perception that Hanner is more concerned with maintaining her grip on power than addressing the pressing issues facing the town. As Dalton's financial situation continues to spiral out of control, the call for change grows louder. Hanner's leadership, marked by incompetence, corruption, and a blatant disregard for her constituents, has left the town in crisis. The growing public backlash, combined with the ongoing FBI investigation, paints a bleak picture for Hanner's political future. Many residents are ready for a new direction, one that puts the needs of the community above political power games. Dalton finds itself at a crossroads, with its future uncertain under Hanner's continued leadership. The prospect of her re-election grows increasingly unlikely as the town's financial collapse, corruption scandals, and mounting legal challenges take their toll. What was once a promising political career has devolved into a bitter struggle for survival, and the people of Dalton are left wondering whether they will ever recover from the damage caused by Hanner's reign. As the election looms, the town is in crisis, with no clear path forward and the public's anger only intensifying. Hanner's days in office appear to be numbered, and it remains to be seen whether the community can recover from the wreckage of her administration. For change has never been more pressing. The town of Dalton is at a tipping point, and its residents can no longer afford to wait for leadership that fails to address their needs and priorities. The breakdown in governance under Mayor Hanner's leadership has left the community fractured and disillusioned. Her persistent failures have made it increasingly evident that Dalton requires a new direction, one that can restore financial stability, accountability, and trust in local government. Hanner's administration, marked by escalating legal battles, financial mismanagement, and personal conflicts, has fostered an environment of instability. Public trust in her ability to lead has dwindled, with each passing day highlighting her inability to manage the basic functions of local governance. From her refusal to make meaningful changes to her failure to maintain cooperation within her own administration, the result has been a town in crisis. Dalton's government is unable to operate effectively, as political gridlock stymies decision-making and delays the resolution of critical issues. The situation is exacerbated by infighting within the township board, as key figures such as trustees Christopher Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle actively undermine Hanner's authority. These internal conflicts have prevented the board from reaching the necessary quorum to make decisions, leaving the town in a constant state of disarray. The trust between the mayor and her own administration has eroded further, and the divide between her leadership and the public has grown wide. As financial woes deepen, Dalton residents are left grappling with the fallout of poor decisions, dubious spending practices, and an overall lack of accountability. Hanner's attempts to consolidate power, such as appointing hand-picked individuals to key positions, have only fueled the perception that she is more concerned with personal gain than with the well-being of the town. Her lack of transparency and disregard for the public's needs have left many residents feeling alienated, while her increasingly erratic political maneuvers have further eroded her legitimacy. In a desperate attempt to maintain her grip on power, Hanner has allocated resources to a costly security detail, diverting much-needed funds away from the town's most pressing needs. This expenditure, along with her refusal to step down despite mounting opposition, has further angered residents, many of whom feel that their mayor is more concerned with maintaining personal security than with ensuring the security and well-being of the community at large. Dalton is at a crossroads. The call for responsible leadership, grounded in transparency, accountability, and a commitment to serving the community, is louder than ever. The town's financial crisis, coupled with the ongoing legal troubles and internal dysfunction, have left Dalton in a state of uncertainty. The longer Hanner holds onto power, the more dire the situation becomes. The residents of Dalton are no longer willing to tolerate a leadership that is self-serving, inefficient, and disconnected from their needs. The time for change is now. The town of Dalton deserves better, and its residents are desperate for a new direction, one that can restore stability, trust, and effective governance. As Hanner's political future grows increasingly uncertain, the question remains: will the people of Dalton be able to take back control of their town, or will they continue to be held hostage by a leadership that has failed them at every turn? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain: Dalton's future cannot afford to wait. The urgency for change in Dalton has never been clearer. As the town grapples with mounting challenges, the residents are growing increasingly desperate for leadership that is responsible, competent, and able to address their concerns. Unfortunately, under Mayor Hanner's leadership, the situation has only worsened. Her erratic behavior, poor decision-making, and disregard for the community's needs have led to a deepening crisis of governance. For too long, Dalton has suffered from financial mismanagement, internal conflicts, and an absence of effective leadership. Hanner's tenure has left the town struggling with a growing list of legal issues, a failure to manage basic services, and a palpable sense of disillusionment among residents. The clock is ticking, and the community can no longer afford to wait for her to confront the reality of her failures. As Hanner's political career spirals toward an inevitable downfall, the town is left wondering if it will ever recover from the damage caused by her administration. The need for new, responsible leadership is more urgent than ever. Dalton's future depends on reclaiming stability and trust in its governance, something that appears increasingly unlikely under the current leadership. The people of Dalton are preparing for what could be the final chapter in Hanner's troubled political journey. The situation is dire, and the time for action is now. The question remains: will Dalton finally demand change and move toward a future that prioritizes its residents' needs, or will it continue to languish under a leader whose reign has been marked by scandal, incompetence, and failure? Dalton's recovery and ability to move forward depend on the ability to restore trust and effective leadership. But one thing is certain: the town cannot continue under the leadership of someone who has failed to meet even its most basic needs. The community deserves better, and its residents are ready for the change that will bring the stability and leadership they so desperately need. The path forward may be uncertain, but it's clear that Dalton's future hinges on the decision to leave behind the chaos of the past and embrace a new direction.